Okay. All right, now, one of the questions that I get asked quite a bit was, all this is great, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty, how are our gymnasts getting judged? How do you judge compulsory routines? So I thought that it would be a really good thing just to run through some of the ways in which the compulsory routine, so you can see what's going to happen to your gymnast if they leave out a skill in their routine, or if they can't do something, or if they do something poorly, what sort of score are they going to get? Now remember that GA do not put a pass mark on any level. Each state can put a pass mark. They can say we have a minimum requirement of, let's say, 28, because the maximum score you can get is 40. So I'm not sure whether Victoria have put a pass mark on actual levels. Okay. So basically, there is a minimum standard. You really wouldn't want to move your gymnast up through the levels unless they've achieved that skill base of the previous level, because developmentally they need to have that base of skill to be able to move and progress through. So there is no pass mark as such, and so all the scoring is purely for competition, just to be able to rank the gymnasts from being the best kid in the competition and so on down the structure. So from anyone's point of view, it really doesn't matter what score they get, as long as the kid that did the best performance gets the highest score. So that's where we started about thinking about how we're going to make the scores. Now the International Gymnastic Federation, they make up their rules for those top level performers who do very minor, mostly the top level, do minor errors, really minor errors, apart from a fall or something like that. So they've got quite significant deductions in the FIG code, and like a whole mark for falling off. And sometimes you can stand on the beam, do a beautiful pivot, as you all know, I'm sure you've experienced this, beautiful pivot, and then they go boink and come off the side. And they've lost a whole mark. And that's fair enough. But what we're trying to work out, we don't want to penalise our kids in that huge severity. We want to make sure that if they do a perfect routine and they got 10 out of 10, but they had one fall, what's the difference between getting 9 and 9.5? Nothing, as long as everyone else was equally ranked. So the whole concept is to make sure that the kids get a high score, and that the lowest score possible would be like around the 6s, like for the really, really, really bad performances. Because why kill the kid and let her go home with a score of 2 out of 10? It's not good for their self-esteem. We want them to stay in gymnastics. So the whole idea is then to make the scores higher rather than lower. But you've got the judge that sits there who's judging at World Championships one day and then comes back and judges level 3 the next day. They can't learn 2 lots of deductions. It's impossible to keep all that information in your head, make errors and whatever. So in our wisdom, for level 3 to 6, we've decided that the judge just judges as normal, takes all the deductions as per the FIG code and as what's written in the manual, and as what we would judge for level 7 to 10. But level 3 to 6, we just halve the deductions, just cut them in half, and then take them away from 10. So it means that if you've got a perfect routine, but you've just got a fall, you'll get 9.5, half of a fall. And it means everyone's the same. It doesn't make any difference to anything, except the ranking will stay the same because everyone's being judged on the same level. It just means that the actual score will come out higher, and it won't look bad from a spectator's or from the own kid's perception point of view.
If you, in a compulsory routine, if you fall slightly short of the technical requirement, it doesn't matter, that skill still counts.
Correct.
At what point is that skill not recognised?
Okay. I'll just hang on to that one for a minute because it's on my screen. So I'll go through the PowerPoint. So if you have that concept of what I've just been talking about with the concept of trying to get the scores up high, it means then that there'll be very little difference between a lot of kids. But really, what we're saying, it doesn't really matter. As long as the best kid gets the best score and the second best kid is underneath them, and the third best is underneath them. As long as the ranking is correct, it really doesn't matter what the actual score is. And that's what we've pitched at. So if you think about that, let me just run through this quickly and I'll come up to your question. Okay, so they start with 10, and every skill that you have to do in your compulsory routine has an assigned value, and it's either 1 whole mark or 0.5. And if they leave a skill out, if they don't perform a skill at all, they just completely omit it, they'll lose the value of that skill from the start score. So I'm as stiff as a board, there's no way in the world I can do a forward or a backward walkover or a tick-tock, and I'm not even going to try because it hurts my back and I fall all over the place. So I'm not going to do that in my floor routine, that's fine. I'm just going to lose that 1 mark from 10, and I'm going to start on floor from 9. But I'm perfect at everything else, so I'm going to get a good score anyway. So from my development point of view, I'm not being restricted, I can still compete. I might not win floor, but hey, I shouldn't because I can't do a walkover. But I still be competitive. So that's the idea of the value of the skill, if you leave it out completely. Okay, that's the example. Okay, now this is a question. If a gymnast performs a skill but it's incomplete, so I'm on beam and I do my pivot and I come and I'm short, the judge will always recognise the skill. If the judge sees the skill and says, oh yes, that's the full turn, but it's done poorly, you don't lose the value of the skill, you just lose the execution deductions. And so the execution deductions are 0.1 for a small fault, so I'm only just a little bit short, 0.1, or I'm a lot short in my full turn, 0.3, plus I had a big wobble, might lose marks for that. Poor body posture, I'll lose extra marks for that as well. But the actual skill will be recognised. I do a split leap on floor. At level 3, you only required 90-degree angle between your legs. So therefore, if I do a split leap that's got 90 degrees, I don't lose any deductions for lack of split. If I'm down here, yes I do. At level, I think level 4 and 5, I can't remember exactly, is 135. That's what's required. So if I can split like that at 135, no deductions for lack of split. Might lose it for bent legs and wobbles and whatever, but flexed feet. But for the lack of split, I'm okay. At level 6, it's required to be 180 degrees. If I'm 180 degrees, no deduction, and then deductions down. But if I'm supposed to be at 180 degrees and I'm down here, I'll lose 0.3 for lack of split. But I won't take, the split leap will not be removed from my D score, because I've actually tried to do the split leap. I've just done it poorly. So I lose execution deductions. Yep. If that answers your question?
If the compulsory routine asks for a full turn and they just did a half turn?
Okay. If it's clearly an attempt at doing the full turn, then that's...
Still, so someone who is like 30 degrees off that completing their full turn, and someone who just does a half turn, they get the same?
They get the same probably execution deductions on the lack of turn, because it's only 0.1 and 0.3. Now, I don't think anybody's going to try and do a half turn when they're supposed to do a full turn. Well, I would hope not anyway. So I think the idea is, and these are problems that judges encounter all the time. The judges are there to make a judgment, and we tried to make it so that the judges didn't have to make a judgment to say, was that split leap split enough to be counted? We don't want the judges, we don't want the kids to be under that sort of situation. We want the athletes to try and do the skill as best they can, and they just need to be ranked accordingly to make sure that the girl that does the beautiful split leap at 180 degrees is rewarded. And the only way she can be rewarded is by everyone else who's less getting a deduction. So, and I'm hoping that that girl that only does a half turn, she might not get enough deduction compared to the girl that does the full, but she hopefully won't win. And so therefore, what we're saying underneath the ranking, really after the top, awards, the rest of the competition is for maybe for their own self-performance to improve their score. I don't know. It's the way develop your kids. Okay, so that's the answer to that one. Judging deductions will be as per the FIG code of points, and what we've done is we've transposed that into the manual in what we call the National Levels Code, and it's all in the manual. Everything's in here. And we've added some other deductions for level 3 to 6. So, for example, section 4.2, page 30, has the, no, not that one. Okay, I haven't got my level 3 to 6. Okay, section 4.2, page 9, for example, shows you the level 3 deductions for bars. And there's a few extra deductions other than FIG deductions that are actually listed for errors on bars at level 3 to 6. Because at FIG they don't do just a long swing. So we had to put in deductions specifically for that. The volt deductions are not halved. So volt judging will just be volt. You just add up your deductions, put them in, that's the end of volt, just as per normal. It's only bars, beam and floor. When the E judges sit there, watch the routine, take the deductions, add them up to 1.8, they'll put in 0.9. Just halve them and put them in. Okay, so this is where the crux comes. Because we want to encourage the athlete to actually do the skill, we don't want them to omit it. If you know that you can't really do a cartwheel on the beam and you fall off every time, if you do it and fall off, you actually get the 1 mark for the fall halved and 0.5. But if you leave it out completely, it's worth 1 mark. You actually get a whole mark off your D score, off your start score of 10 and start from 9. So that's encouraging the athlete to attempt the skill, put it in the routine if possible. But if it's unsafe or they're going to get more than the 1 mark deduction, which basically you can't, but you know, it's the coach's decision to leave it in or try it and put it in. Okay, then the same thing happens. All the scores are put in, they're added, the highest and the lowest are eliminated, and the middle two averaged, and you come up with the final score, just the same as normal. So it's out of 10. As long as you do all the skills in the routine, it's out of 10. If you went out of the floor area or you spent too long on the beam, you'll get a neutral deduction of 0.1, and that comes off the final score at the end as well. Has anyone got any questions about how the scoring system works? It's basically the same. If you have been in gymnastics a long time, it's the old way of calculating out of 10. Now that's with a neutral deduction, if you can see that, and that's calculating the score.